You have to be persistent. Don't let the setbacks, pull you back. It's the journey is never ceases to be challenging, ever. It doesn't matter, and basically you can look at inspirations of all the people that did great things and built things, and they've never been built in an easy way. They've always had struggle related to them, and the more you do, the more you get criticized, and take criticism as a sort of badge of honor. The more you criticize, the more you're trying. You're not sitting back.
Greg Sheldon here, your host of Metal, Steel, Manufacturing, and Business Pro podcast, where you learn everything about the metals and manufacturing industry that make your modern day life possible. Hello. Good evening for me. Maybe it's a different time of day for you, but I really appreciate you coming because today we've got a gentleman from the industry. He's got a metallurgy and material science background and comes from Libya, moved to Canada. And, I know he doesn't say it, but there is a lot of work he put into becoming successful. And, we'll get into his journey across Canada and the schools he's been to and his mentorship with a specific professor and a perspective that professor brought, which is brilliant. And then, has moved down to Silicon Valley, and we learned so much about, the power of persistence and being part of all of these wonderful startups that he was involved with. And it's a joy to hear. And I'm super excited for you to learn about that. His story alone is just great. But second to that, we've got the biofuels, which is what he does. And maybe it doesn't exactly apply to metals. But if you think about it for more than 2 seconds, you'll know, this is something that's happening right now. And I'm not a believer in we need to cut it off right now because that's crazy. That's impossible. And, there's a lot of political rhetoric on both sides and people are divided because of it. But what's great about Monem is his objective is simply, I look at the facts, I'm an engineer, and that is the way that he digests. And that's his lens. And I think that is a refreshing perspective. So biofuels is where we need to start thinking. And it also creates opportunity in local economies of building these facilities. And these are the things we just need to start thinking about. If you're not thinking about them already, because I know I wasn't, but I am now. And we need to be sustainable going forward because the climate is changing. I can't tell you what the reason is. Monem has his opinions. I've got mine. You've got yours. But we cannot deny the fact that the weather's changing. So we need to get onto a path of sustainability. Plus, it drives economy. And that's a good thing. That's good for everybody. So thank you, Monem, very much for being on the show. It's a pleasure. And everybody will hear about his intro. It's quite remarkable. So without any further delay, Monem Alyaser. All right, welcome everybody. Greg Sheldon here. Today we are honored to have Monem Alyaser, and what a gentleman he is. He's up to some pretty remarkable things. He's a serial entrepreneur, a climate tech advisory team builder, and he has a diverse background in technology and business development and innovation and hands-on engineering, and a senior executive in startups to IPO in thermal and process engineering. He has patents in chemical processing and thermal engineering, a Ph.D. from the University of British Columbia, and executive management from Stanford School of Business. So welcome, Monem. What a privilege we have to have you here today.
Thank you, Greg. My pleasure.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to jump into, your history, but, what Enventix is. And as we discussed beforehand, that, this is a podcast about the metals industry, but it's always good for everybody to get a different perspective on things and hear about things that are happening out there that may not directly impact the metals industry, but they can through what biofuel is and how this can affect local economies. So, but I think a good place to start is, what's your history, sir?
Well, great. It's a good question. And it's hard to know where we start, but maybe I can start as early as when I came to Canada. And
yes.
to Ontario, I came to Canada back in 1984 from Libya as a student after high school. And I was sent on a scholarship to study materials process engineering and metallurgy as part of the atomic energy program in Libya. And I ended up in Sudbury, Ontario, because Sudbury was a Laurentian university. Being a mining and metallurgy school was the fastest way for me to start my undergraduate school, because at the time when I arrived in Canada, the quota for foreign students to get into engineering was something like 3% or something like that.
Oh my!
So, and
it's not a lot.
No, not a lot. And so I found that many foreign students were waiting, like in the waiting list for 2 years or so, just to get into U of T and McGill and so on.
Yeah.
So I was advised that, hey, go to university, go to Laurentian, and it's a small school, accepts, has more room, and it's a mining school in metallurgy.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, you can transfer to, easier to transfer. And then I went to Laurentian, and it was interesting. I didn't understand anything about the brand name and all that at the time. I was like, this is a good school. And I was planning to move anyways, based on the advice I got. Yeah. Then I got to my surprise, I got this scholarship, from it's called J.P. Pecker Foundation Scholarship, not unsolicited. It was given to like top students in metallurgy, mining, and something else. I forgot what it was, but anyways, one of very few that I got, and it was I think it was like $2,000 a year or something like that, and I got the first 2,000, and then the other ones was like, okay, you can get it if you stay in the university, you can. And I'm like, I have a lot of friends in Sudbury. I love it. I like the school. I was able to go and work in the university labs at the beginning, because foreign students couldn't work at the time in Canada. Mm. So the only place they just opened up, you can actually work in the university in the summertime. I'm talking about summer times, Mm-hmm. So I got this work with Inco and Falconbridge. 1 year was Inco, the other one was Falconbridge, but I have to do it in the university. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I could go to the smelter, sure, but it has to be through the university. Right. I had to go to Inco smelter and Falconbridge and do some testing and all of that kind of stuff, and meet with the engineers there. But it has to be through the university. So it was great. I had a lot of fun. Cool. And I had a lot of attention from the professors, because it was a small school. I had all of the keys to the labs. I was like, I owned the whole place, Yeah. So
that's good. That's good. Cool.
Yeah. So, and that's my start as an engineer. That's where I had the pleasure. And after that, I worked on copper and copper smelting, and then I worked on things related to sulfide dust explosions, which was a big hazardous thing in mines. I was young, and I was doing research at a caliber level research. It was a good experience. I did work on steel. On the develop models that actually can predict the steel composition, thermodynamic models that, so it was very, so by the time I graduated from Laurentian, I had a lot of experience, and I got accepted. I applied for a master's program to McGill and Queens, and I think it was U of T as well, and I got accepted to all of them with scholarships. And then at the last minute, I was talking to the professor. His name is passed away now, Professor Linden, and he was my mentor, and that was hiring me all the time there in the summertime. And I said, "Oh, where are you going? Did you settle?" I said, "Yeah, I'm pretty much settled. I'm going to go to Queens." And he said, "Is that you're happy? Is that where you want to go?" I said, "Well, what I really want to go is UBC. I want to go west." And he says, "Why don't you go?" I said, "Well, I heard that it's tough to get into." And he says, "What are you talking about? Everybody would love to have you. Apply,
Good.
So I said, "Huh." I was like, I'm about 3 weeks. I'm ready to go to well, I think, where's Queens? Well,
Kingston.
Sorry, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And then I applied for the last minute, and he said, "No, apply and send a letter to this professor. His name is Keith Bramacom, and tell him that I recommended him." And I send a letter, and it was about a week later, I got a phone call, and this guy is calling me in the lab. And I talked to him, and God bless his soul, he passed away too. And unfortunately, when I was still doing my Ph.D., he said, "How soon can you get there?" I said, "Well, I don't have any funding. I don't have." He says, "Don't worry about the funding. How soon can you get here?" I said, "Well, I can get here, as long as, my job is going to end by the end of August, so I can leave, and probably take me a week to get there because I can't afford the plane, so I'm going to have to drive." So my old car.
I did the drive out west as well at one time. It's a lengthy one.
Yeah, it's lengthy, but you camp, so I camped all the way. The campgrounds were like $10, $15 a night, so so it's
and a good experience.
Budget. The student budget to get to British Columbia. Plus, it's a nice, it's something I can't afford to do now,
Right. Yeah. There's no time for that.
It's actually, it would be more costly for me now to do that trip than when I was a student.
Yeah. So it's a good thing you did it. I mean,
I know. I wish I could do it again.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And, a lot of people talk about Saskatchewan being flat and boring. I thought that was one of the most interesting parts. I mean, it's all interesting, but when I happened to go through and they had the fields were grown up, it was just gorgeous, I thought, anyway.
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, to me, it's like I'm very lucky to see that much of Canada, North America in general, and driving up, Northern Ontario, going to Manitoba, and all of the changes, trains that you drive through. And then, you get through Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta, and then, you get to to Western Alberta and Eastern British Columbia, and you see that beauty, just unbelievable. It's just, I advise everybody to go make that trip.
I can't share that part past Alberta, because when I moved out there or drove out there, I stupidly stopped in Alberta and didn't go any further. I regret that. I was right there, and the closest I got was going to Canmore, and then whatever the ski hill was that has the border on the top. That's as close as I got.
Louise and Jasper is the places that
must have been it. But so that's good that you made it that far. So what did you think of BC when you got there?
Oh, just beauty.
Yeah.
BC, British Columbia is just amazingly beautiful. And especially the Lower Mainland, and Vancouver is, I think it's the most beautiful city in the world. Yeah. It just, it's gorgeous. I mean, and I mean, I can't complain. I'm very very lucky to have lived in these places, and all of these, especially, all of the experience, in Sudbury, Ontario. Of course, you got the lakes and you got the small town feeling and the good people and friends and all of the experience. And then British Columbia, Vancouver, UBC is just an amazing school too. I mean, Keith Bramacom, I discovered when I got there, and I had no idea how much, this famous guy, professor, who is legendary, I'm like, how did I did not design this.
Yeah, it's
How
amazing.
did I end up, being a student of one of the top professors in the world in the field?
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. Just it just happened for me.
It's
absolute luck.
So nice to hear, even to today, like all the things you've accomplished, that you're still humble about that, and it is. Sometimes things in life are just amazing how they happen. And, we have to be thankful for our fortunes, right? Like that.
Oh, absolutely. You can't. I mean, if I have to design my life, I don't think I've been able to do it. Just to go and work, do my graduate school, my master's and Ph.D. at the University of British Columbia, and with such great people, great students and great professors, and people are, and such an amazing school. I mean, Keith, taught me a lot. They really changed my mind about how I've always, thought that I'm going to be a professor.
Right.
Just love doing research and discovering stuff. And then one day I came and asked him, give me your advice. What do you think I should do? I want to be. Says, what do you want to be? I said, I want to be a professor. I want to do research. And then he surprised me. He says, why would a guy like you want to be a professor? I said, what do you mean? He said, you're very industrious. What are you going to do as a professor? I said, well, I like to do research. I said, you do research. You write a lot of papers. And no disrespect to research or just it's absolutely something I'd love to do. But Keith's idea is that, hey, just my character, from what he learned about me and the way I interacted, he said, you should be going out there and doing industrial stuff.
Yeah.
Should be in the industry. He said, think about it. I mean, we do a lot of research here. Most of these papers, we just they stay on the shelf. He said, I like to get things done in the field. And it's true. He was a pioneer in a way that his view was engineering is not about, he called it the test tube research. The difference between a test tube research and a plant and an industry process research, where he made a lot of the universities do research sort of close to abstract, So when you're in science and chemistry and physics and all of that, a lot of the research is fundamental in nature. You're going down to the, so it's a laboratory scale type of experiment. Keith believed in doing PhD and master's research where the students actually go and do exact applications, study and improve application in industry to improve efficiency, to improve the processes themselves, make them more effective, more lower cost, all of that, improve the quality of the product. That's what he drove it, and he drove the multidisciplinary research. So it was a unique in many ways. I mean, a lot of the professors in the industries, they think that is kind of beneath them, I don't mean to, but at least in the past, now things have changed, and a lot of, I think a lot of the research done in the universities right now is more applied, especially in engineering.
Yes.
But at the time, is like, I'm not gonna crawl under pipes and all that to do research. I'm an academic doing the lab. But what working with Keith taught me is that, hey, this isn't about just self-gratification of learning.
That's right.
Let me see how I can discover. No, it's about really improving lives, creating wealth.
Yeah.
One time he gave a lecture. He was asked to give a lecture inside the university to this center that was built, new center, which he drove very well. Right now it's called the Bramacom Center for I think it's called for materials process engineering work, but it's multidisciplinary. All of the different, his vision was to bring in all of the different departments, the mechanicals, the chemicals, metals and materials, physics, all of that, to look into to do multidisciplinary research that is geared towards actual industrial processes, his lecture was wealth creation.
Really?
Wealth creation and engineering. I don't remember the exact title.
Yeah.
But I was sitting there in the back, and many of the professors were there, and they were laughing. It's like, this is a joke. We're in academia. We're talking about wealth creation. And I don't think they understood what he was driving at. Is that, look,
it's not just about money.
No, it's not about money, because guess what? We want money to do research in university. We should figure out, what is this loop about?
Mm-hmm.
Do we actually create wealth in our research? Do we make impact? Do we make impact into creating value to companies that actually produce steel or copper or fuels or pulp and paper, or any company, or in the tech industry?
Yeah.
Do we actually make things more abundant and lower cost and more efficient? Do we create more jobs? Do we invent new stuff that creates more value, or we just do things that make us feel good?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the question. And I remember that time is like, I was pretty naive. I mean, I'm like, I was in the border of like, okay, these guys are laughing. This guy is very serious.
Mm-hmm.
Who's right? Somewhere in between. I don't know.
No, there is no right. It's all perspective, right? But it's really interesting you bring that up. And kind of the last time we talked, you talked about the philosophy in Silicon Valley, where it's about, there's the beachhead, right?
Yes.
And you're going to generate a market from the innovation. Could you talk about that? Remember that conversation we had? And I would love, because you're way better at articulating it than I am.
Yeah, absolutely. So this brings me back, though. You put me back on track. I'm sorry. Sometimes.
Oh no, it's all good. No.
The experience with Keith and my graduate school really made me think about really what do I want to do. And at heart, I grew up in a family that is entrepreneurial in nature and pretty a merchant's family. So I worked since I was like 9 years old, not child labor or anything like that. Don't sue my father. God bless their soul. No,
yes.
No. They so I've and then it triggered the value in me. Is like, okay, I want to do something that is truly then work that does wealth creation, that has a direct impact. I want to do that. And then I actually started a company in Canada with a partner who was a veteran in the industry to help improve processes based on my Ph.D. work, to help improve thermal processes, like in the pulp and paper industry, in the kilns and boilers and things like that. At the time, nobody cared about carbon emissions, but at least people cared about how much they pay money for energy. So I started that company, and it was an uphill battle for two reasons. One of them is my experience in running a business and marketing and sales and all of the aspects into the entrepreneurial aspects. Number two is into the fact that the old industry, like the pulp and paper and the cement industry and all that, is not progressive enough. It's very conservative. If it works, do not do anything about it. If it's not broken, don't fix it. That kind of mentality. So it took me a year to get a project. It took us a year, me and my partner. We did eventually.
Yeah,
and we did, and then we did that project, and the first project, and it was great. We made a huge impact, and we saved, I think, like more than, I remember, about $1 million a year.
Oh wow!
On fuel savings alone for one kiln, to optimize one kiln,
Wow!
But the story itself is just to get that project. It was an amazing thing. I mean, it was a story by itself.
Well, it's the beginning of a track record too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was then what triggers to what happens, my experience in the old industry, heavy industry, and what was happening in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Because at the time, the internet was coming out and the news coming out about the stock market, the Yahoo value, all of these. Google wasn't there at the time. It was started,
Wow.
but not. But Yahoo, I mean, yeah, that'll tell you how old I am now.
It's hard to fathom without life without Google. That's become a verb, right?
Yes, Google it.
Yeah.
The point is, it made me think. So wait a minute, I know, but there's one experience that actually was transformational for me. It was a good friend of mine, Rob McGurry, was a manager with Nokia at the time. It was this idea of this tech startup was coming out. It was a startup that was acquired. He was part of it by Nokia, and we were talking. And he said, we're designing this product that is called thin client. He called it thin client. It's just around,
okay.
Just around, nothing, no big deal.
Yeah.
And he said, we're trying to figure out how we can cool it, but you're in this heat stuff, and you think you could do that? I said, well, yeah, why not? I usually work on heat, but not cooling. But yeah, I can figure it out. Yeah. I mean, little did I knew that was a field by itself. It's called thermal management, electronics cooling,
Oh, yeah.
And I said, yeah, I can do it, And he said, okay, well, we'll give you a project, do it. And I did that for them, and then I discovered that, hey, these guys are very pleasant. I won't have to go to a lime kiln and wear a hard hat and dirty and work boots and all that, and get dirty and everywhere, and it's a lot easier, by the way, technically. So so I started looking at these projects, and I said, hey, why don't we do that until our customers, potential customers in the pulp and paper and all that, make up their mind, we can do this. And started doing that, and one thing led to another. I got a project here in Silicon Valley from Nokia here, and even better. So much faster to finish the projects, make money, and and I said, coincidentally, a company that was in that business and knew about me and reached out to me and gave me an offer. And I said, well, the Silicon Valley seems to be an interesting place, and I want to go. It's a place of startups. I want to learn how to do startups. I want to learn how to do this, and maybe the tech industry is the way. I'd love to do this startup in the industry where I learned and where I want to make an impact, which is the materials and energy and all that. But nobody's doing that. But it's a chance to learn and see this place. So I accepted the job and I came here. And all of my colleagues were from Stanford, and I was the only one who was not from Stanford at the time. And the interesting thing is, the hiring manager told me, "Look, I'm hiring you for a specific reason." I said, "What is it?" They said, "Well, nobody wants to do business development because they think it's not really cool, But I want you to." I want it to do two things. And I said, what is it? I said, I want half of your time to be an engineer where your billable hours, your compensation has to be billable, you're actually doing engineering. And the other half is you have to go and get projects for these guys. And this company was a small company that did thermal design for every product you can name of. All of the Apple iMacs at the time, Apple products, all of them. It was a pioneering company in that field in many ways, and did the cooling for very famous products like the Cisco big high routers and Juniper routers and all of the electronics and you can think of, So I said, okay, well, you got to go and hustle, pretty much. Call these companies and the tech companies and ask you to explain to them that we could do a good job for them and get business. And you got to get so many, this is how much you need to get every year out of projects. And said, that sounds scary, but I'll do it.
Yeah. Well, you're going to learn something. There's experience, right? You're working with the right people. So,
well, and I wanted to learn how to sell too, because I just, I figured
one of the toughest jobs in the world.
Exactly. I said, it doesn't matter. One thing I learned when I was in BC is it doesn't matter how good of your product. If you don't know how to actually sell it, it doesn't have value.
That's right.
Unless you actually can reach out to the end customer, and explain it to them and explain the value and the benefit. Why should they pay you money for this product? It's not going to have value. And then time is money. And then you make their product and you don't have the return on investment in the right time. Everything falls off. Right? No. So I just figured, I'll do that. I mean, it's like he read my mind,
Yes.
But at the same time, I had no idea that he was preparing to go seek a higher job in the parent company, and he was preparing his successor. And 3 years later, I became the executive director of the company.
Oh, wow.
Even though I was the most junior guy in the company.
Oh, my gosh. So, how did that go with everybody else? I mean,
it was very tough at the beginning.
Yeah.
It was, you can cut the atmosphere with a knife, it was thick. It was really, but I learned, management leadership is not, it's not automatic.
No.
You have to figure out how you can lead, and it doesn't help people give you titles as much as you want.
No.
But it's not going to solve your problem. You have to figure out how you can lead even from behind.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've been.
There is a joke about the leading from behind. Well, let's not get into it.
So let's not.
But the key thing is that how do I overcome the resistance of my colleagues who were senior to me, didn't think that I was as worthy as they are, and didn't think there is a general thinking is that sales and marketing and business development and all that, those are something beneath, So I had a different view that is critical. Sales, marketing, business development, all of that stuff is critical as the making and designing of the product in itself.
Of course it is.
If not more.
If not more. And let me just interrupt you for a sec. Sorry. But it's always been funny to me that one of the first things that always goes when companies are downsizing is sales and marketing. I always thought that was such an interesting concept, and well, not even a concept, it happens, right? I just, you would think the front lines, which is sales and marketing, would be one of the last or middle to go, not the first.
Well, in some cases, in many cases, it depends on in every case by itself.
Sure.
The brand is already established, To establish a brand, you need brilliance in marketing. You need a collective team of work in making that brand and making that sale automatic, which is never automatic, it needs that there's so much creativity in the marketing, sales, and business development. But the key thing is that, so I want to get to your question about the creation of the value and the startup issue, quickly before I lose you. The point is that I learned that, hey, I have to. One lesson here is that I need to figure out how I can lead. This manager who hired me was senior, everybody respected, whatever he says, they listen to, but they're not going to listen to me. They're very unhappy to start with. They just feel awkward, okay? Mm-hmm. And this was kind of pushed on them by the senior management. And now I need to make everybody feel better. So how do I do that? I said, okay, I'm going to make them lead as opposed to me leading. And how do we do that? I said, okay, I believe the key thing is, back then there was not a lot of something called CRM, customer relationship management systems, okay? Mm-hmm. So I said, I need something electronic, automatic. I don't want to use spreadsheets to figure out who's doing what, because in a consulting firm or any entity of such, like any firm like that, where people use their intellect and their hours to contribute to the company's resources, you don't have a manufacturing plant in the back, machines that are cranking away. But these are people actually using their intellect and their ability their engineering ability to execute projects for customers and create value for the company. So let's just rather than me telling this gentleman and that gentleman and this colleague and that colleague how they're doing, I wanted a system that where it tells them the story without me telling them. Yeah. Because this way, we are all leading and not just me. Mm-hmm. And so I proposed that, and I looked for product at the time were too expensive for the size of our company. So I hired a guy to write this code for about $4,000 back then. This is back in the early 2000s, by the way, mm-hmm. And 2003, I think 2002. And he got, for about $4,000, he created this HTML-based CRM, which is awesome compared to what is there right now. Yeah, it had integrated everything into the company, and every engineer, everybody had all of his projects and ours, and everything is really integrated. And then anytime in our weekly meetings, I don't talk. I just project it and let them talk, and everybody is clear now. And I negotiated a new deal with the parent company, is that, hey, we need a better bonus structure here. Result is that no longer everybody hid around the fact that they're more senior. Everybody's hours were clear. Everybody in a dashboard, everybody's no need for me to say anything or appear to be like above anybody or anything like that. I'm sitting there with the team just like anybody else. I'm not the head of the company in that respect. So it was a collective management, and I drove it that way. Yeah, yeah. And the results were, we doubled the revenue in the same year. Wow. Everybody's bonus, I negotiated bonus even for the office manager. She was happy with me at the end. She figured that was not a stupid idea to hire this guy.
Do you think it was the transparency of the information that brought everybody together, or do you think it was that you took the lead to consolidate that information into one place? What do you think it was?
Definitely the transparency had a huge impact. Yeah. Just being clear so that, nobody is making assumptions, because when things are not clear, everybody makes assumption that they are more contributing to the pot than the other. Okay. And when you make the things are quantifiable, which I learned to do that going back to my experience in my graduate school with Keith, is that modeling, quantification is a key thing. You gotta be able to quantify things and project them and understand the way you stretch them back and forth and see how the things behave, That's when you really understand what's going on. It makes things clear. And, whether a spreadsheet, whether a graph, whatever it is. It has to be clear, not subjective, quantifiable as much as possible, so that you take out the ambiguity out of the interpretation of what's happening here. So and that kind of helped me gain some respect. So
I believe so. Yes.
So,
yeah, absolutely. What a great lesson on the way to what you're doing now. I mean, that is just invaluable, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is
it's almost as if it happened for a reason, right? And it's just weird. I mean, I don't know about that. I'm just saying, it's sometimes these things
absolutely.
happen.
I think I'm lucky in many ways. I mean, I stumbled on this job where I was scared to take, by the way. I was scared to take because this is thermal management, electronics cooling. It's different from what I really trained and did and all that. But I said, you know what, I'm going to jump into it because this is, I just see the difference in value in the tech industry between the old industry. I'm going to learn something. I want to learn what makes this place, this Silicon Valley, a place, and this innovation, this startup idea, this whole thing is that, I not sure if I'm going to get that in BC, in British Columbia.
Yeah,
I had I attended a course that was given by the Canadian government at the time when I was in my company that I started there for business management and everything like that. It was a free course, which is great. It was really great. It was accounting, financials, everything that you need to know to run a business. I think it was called Yes Canada or something like that. I'm not sure if it's still there anymore. But I was like, it was my first, and then. But the whole idea of the Silicon Valley was very kind of to me, it was like a black hole was grabbing me, So and it happened, I got lucky by coincidence, that I got this job. And I came here, and then after that, I was doing this company, leading this company, and my mind is like, when is it going to be the day that where I actually be part of a startup? Not, I want to create something new. In my old company, it was called Applied Thermal Technologies, where I became the director. We did very well, of course, the company was very famous, did lots of products. One of the things that I worked on as an engineer is the design of the cooling system for the Tesla Roadster.
Oh, wow.
Motor. Lots of products like that. I co-managed co-supervised a system that was in the Boeing 787. It was a liquid cooling system for the power management system for the Boeing 787. It was the first of its kind. So amazing, many different projects with different backgrounds. And then a company from Denmark came here and looked for somebody like me, and hired me as their VP of Business Development, and then later on asked me to do applications engineering too as well. Long story, but to make it short, that was experience for me to be an executive on an executive management team as part of a startup that eventually went to IPO and did very well. And a big experience for me. Then I said, I want to do something, too close to my heart, which is the environment, the energy, and all that.
Yes.
How do you do that? And that's where the clean tech time, I started learning about the clean tech and what does it mean? Why do you do a startup? What is it? What's the value creation in that? And like I mentioned to you in our introduction, I said I started learning and listening to lectures and from tech entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley and venture capitalists. And one of the very famous VCs is his name is Vinod Khosla, and he was a driver. He is the co-founder of Sun Microsystems.
Okay.
And then he actually decided to spearhead the clean tech and invest in biofuels, something that I am doing right now heavily.
Yes.
And he was explaining in one of his lectures is that as an entrepreneur, you have to look for the $0 billion market.
Yeah.
I said, what's a $0 billion market? 0 billion means no. What it means is that it's $1 billion market. It's a big market, right?
Yeah.
Has a huge, but it's right now, it has a value of 0.
Mm-hmm.
That's the venture. That's the where the biggest risk involved is proportional to the rewards involved.
Mm-hmm.
Not monetization and value, money value, is reflected on the value that is created in the market.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I say $1 billion, it means that most likely I'm reaching out a bigger segment of the market. I am making a big impact. I'm solving a big problem
Mm-hmm.
that already exists. That problem could be a problem, or could be I'm saving so much value of waste in doing something right now that's being done.
Yes.
So you realize that as an entrepreneur, you look at it and you say, okay, there is an opportunity here for innovation.
Yeah.
Because you can't make that big transformation without innovation.
No.
That innovation has to be, often is not just technical.
Yeah. Monem, were there some examples that you looked to as inspiration for this, you know, before you got started or kind of in the process of getting started?
Well, you know, there is no short of inspiration here in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
I have, in the consulting world where I was working for about from 99 until end of 99 until 2006, where I went on to be on the startup. I have worked and helped countless companies, startups that are made it big. One of the companies that startups that I worked with, I helped. By the way, when I was a executive director of the company, I still maintained my hourly contribution. I did not, and part of my leadership, my management, is to make my colleagues still, you know, have respect for me and don't think that I'm just a marketing guy. I need to.
I think that's a good position to be in.
You know,
Yeah.
You know, I had to continue to do projects on my own so that in our weekly meeting I can show that, hey, I'm doing stuff. I'm not just you know, selling. You know, so please keep respecting me.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah. So one of the and whenever, so I take on whatever, when they're busy, I would take on the extra projects. You know, so I take on. Yeah. I didn't have to, but I did that. You know, to make sure that we, you know, there's when you are in a consulting firm or entity like that, you can't just hire new people. You gotta plan for it, because otherwise you affect everybody else's bonus, and you know, and then people won't like you. So, so it's important to keep everybody happy. You know, so I got this call from a company, this startup that was making an inhaler for insulin. You know,
okay,
and this company was called Molecular Delivery. It was here in Pleasanton. It was a a doctor and a number of engineers and all that. And they had this idea that instead of shooting insulin, you know, in a needle, you inhale it. You know, you put the insulin on a substrate. Yeah. Bottom line is that I went to see them. I sat there like a student in their production room. The engineering manager explained to me a whole bunch of stuff about delivery into the lung. You know, you have to have a certain conditions for the pharmaceutical, because you gotta heat it, and you gotta, you know, the patient will have to suck a certain amount of air to go into the lung. Anyways, I got this lecture learning that, hey, you know, you gotta have the right conditions for the medicine to reach the bottom of the lungs. Okay, so I was driving about a 45-minute drive back to the office. I'm like, how do I help them? They've been trying for about a year and couldn't get somewhere. And then I'm like, okay, so I got two ideas. Went to the office. I had a team meeting. I said, look, you know, these guys have been trying. Let's can we try these different models maybe? And one of my colleagues said, yeah, why don't we try this one too? So we gave them a proposal. I think it was a very short. Back then it was like, I think it was $15,000, small project, you know. So that company was sold later to a company called Alexa for $85 million 3 months later, after we actually solved their problem. They've been trying that I don't think the product actually made it to the market, you know.
Yeah.
But the fact is that, and many many cases like this were a huge value. I can name so many companies that Tesla is one of them. It was a startup when I worked for them back then myself.
Yeah.
You know, the first Google server was tested in our lab.
Oh, wow.
You know, oh yeah, Apple iMacs from the year 2000, 2006. I have the architecture, the thermal architecture with, you know, how it is cooled. It's based on a design that I worked on back in 2003, 2004. Nothing has changed. So many things that we've done, you know, so iconic. You know, so many products that you name it, you know. So just seeing that value. iPad, one of the first projects I worked on when I came here, it was something called the Apple tablet, which never went to the market. Really? But later on became the iPad.
Huh. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Man, so man. The whole design was based on the tablet, which was not time yet because the chips were too hot at the time, not fast enough. Yeah. And then later on, the iPad came out. You know, so
it's funny that you say conditions, because it's always like market timing and conditions, and sometimes it's internal things like you're saying about, you know, the technology isn't there or the conditions of the product. But what are the conditions right now when it comes to the green movement, when it comes to green biofuels and that sort of stuff? Is the condition, are we ready for that? Is it your technology's there, but are people ready for that? I think they are. I see that they are. I'm just wondering, what is everybody saying out there?
Well, it's I think it's pretty clear to everybody right now that we cannot deny climate change.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And which means that, you know, this whole fossil fuel based industry has to transition to, it's called the energy transition at this point, you know, into cleaner sources of energy, more abundant, more secure. Yeah.
So there's a lot of politics get involved in this, right? When it comes to the climate change and all that stuff and the reasons for it. But on the long term, I mean, using fuels compared to electric's utilizing fossil fuels in some cases anyway, right? So how do we start thinking about these things instead of being divided because you're on some political spectrum? How can we think about this as fossil fuels aren't sustainable because of what reason? Is it the carbon, or is it because the drilling of it or the mining of metals is coming out of the ground? It doesn't make sense, or like, is that the way we need to be thinking about it instead of fighting over who's making more profits and who's right politically? And sorry to throw you on a political curveball, but I think it's important.
No, and it's always best not to be ideological when you're trying to solve a problem. And because ideology is not. It leads to more contention, and more conflict than reason. And as an engineer, you know, my experience, I learned, you know, to quantify things. Look at the quantities and look at the actual facts on the ground without having to have an emotional attachment. to any side or to any view, and be objective about it. When I got involved in the when I started my Ph.D., Keith asked me, said, "What do you want to do?" I said, I want to do something related to the environment. Really, I want to, because naturally, me personally, I love, for instance, I look at when I in British Columbia, how clean and how, the trees and everything, and just that climate is just, I love hiking and love skiing and I love the nature and all that. And then that to me, the earth is a gift. We live in it and we should preserve it.
Absolutely.
And preserve the climate, the air and water and everything that we have, because it comes back to the word of sustainability for generations to come on the earth, and then making life better for human beings to come that will come after us. And it's not fun to be sitting locked in your home for a whole week in California, where because of forest fires the air is so dirty you cannot breathe it, right?
Yeah.
And with no electricity, heat, and no clean air. So even if we are selfish and forget about future generations, think about now.
Fair enough. Yes.
Yeah, because when I've been here for 22 years, going to 23 years now, and the things that we've seen in the last few years in California, it started like the California fires.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have jokes from people from, in Oregon and Washington and all that. And it's like, oh, about California fires, Guess what? It's no longer just the California fires.
Right.
They're the Idaho fires,
Right.
the British Columbia fires,
Yes.
forest fires. And it's no fun, and what is doing that? It's clear there's a correlation between the carbon emissions, whether it's methane, whether it's CO2, whatever, all of that, and climate change. There is a direct correlation, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So there is a recognition of that. Now we have alternative energy. So electrification, you mentioned about electrification. Nothing is going to go to 100 from zero in one day.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I agree. There definitely has to be a progress, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The key thing is that we just filter out all of the ideology and the politics and everything,
mm-hmm.
and just optimize. Not kill the industry, kill the economy because of radical decisions.
I think that's the biggest concern that everybody has, that I hear, is that it's one extreme to the other. And it can't work that way, right?
These are called revolutions. The revolutions usually have very bad consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah. The intention is to fix things, but the consequences that you destroy a lot of things before you start going back to normal, which is, can we afford that? Can we afford to go hungry before we go clean? Obviously not. We have a population growth that's happening, no doubt about it. We have so there is, the key thing is that we have a plan, a plan that is, in the United States, 2007, Congress enacted the National Energy Security Act.
Mm-hmm.
And that act had so many things as part of it. The intention was not the climate at the time.
Okay.
It was basically energy security, because of the geopolitical situation and the problems and the oil and the water, and the introduction to that act was like achieve independence from Middle East oil, because the Middle East is, a very unstable and all that kind of stuff, and we want to be. And as part of that act was to have, drivers for nuclear, solar, for wind, for biomass, biofuels, all of that before, the actual, scary times of the forest fires and the continuing storms that we're seeing and all of that. And every year is becoming worse and worse and worse. Not to mention the melting of the ice cap and everything else, and they affected on the whole ecosystem and the prospect of losing lots of farmland, and issue like that, and droughts, and you name it, a whole slew of things that are very harmful to our environment and threatening to our sustainability. Then now there was an attempt back in 2005, and I mentioned Vinod Khosla was a driver for these biofuels and alternative and all that. He never believed in electrification. He believed that that you got to have alternative clean fuels from biomass, which can be drop-in fuels in the same infrastructure that exists right now. Because
I agree.
The rationale is like, okay, you electrify the car, where is the power going to come from?
That's right.
From coal?
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. A nuclear, coal is there now. It's there. Now, we've gotten to about 45%, 40% natural gas. Guess what? Even natural gas is no good. Okay, so that's still fossil fuel.
What do you think about nuclear? Out of curiosity.
Absolutely a solution. We need that.
Yeah.
Nuclear. We need and the things that are the fusion and all that. That's future, but we need to have investment
right now. Right now,
we need to, but there's things that are we have no choice. I mean, we have right now the Biden administration has projected as part of this Inflation Reduction Act and the goals for electrification of land vehicles, about 65% electric vehicle, okay, by 2050. By 2050, we're also projecting about 1 billion vehicles on the road. From, I think, a quarter of it right now, about 250 million, I think, or something like that. Something in that range. I can't remember the exact number. Please don't hold me to it. But I know it's a billion vehicles by 2050. I did a quick calculation in it's a post on my LinkedIn, which basically on that basis, if we have 65% electric, the remaining is still need liquid fuels in order to reach net zero. By 2050, we will still need half of the liquid fuels we use in the United States today. About 100 billion gallons per year.
Yeah. So you have created a way to do this.
Exactly. So now we have biofuels. Now, biofuels has always been a drop-in biofuel, not biodiesel blended with fossil fuel.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So what is green biofuel?
Good question. So basically, there is the first generation biofuels, which are like corn ethanol and all that, and you plant corn, and all due respect to the corn and ethanol people, is that's not the most sustainable way to get over fossil fuels for liquid fuels.
Okay.
We mentioned that we still need liquid fuels. We need gasoline, we need diesel, and we need sustainable jet fuel to be able to power all of these ships that are sailing the ocean and bringing merchandise from everywhere and power all of our travel, aviation, fuel, and land vehicles. It doesn't matter, light duty, heavy duty. We still have to power them, but by liquid fuel. So right now, we have this ethanol thing, which is not most sustainable. Just to give you an idea, what is sustainable, okay, and what is the scale of sustainability? It is measured in the carbon intensity of the fuel itself.
Okay.
Okay, which means that what is the actual carbon? What is the source of carbon, the life cycle of the carbon? How much of it is renewable and how much is non-renewable? Renewable is bio-based, like trees, things that we're planting. They're gonna suck CO2 from the atmosphere, and they're gonna make cellulose, biomass, and all that. And where is that going, right? What do we do with it? Can we recycle it as part of a fuel system where the CO2 involved in that gone to the atmosphere, it makes this cycle back? Or is it extracted down from Earth, it goes to the atmosphere, and there's nothing going back? People are talking about carbon capture sequestration right now. I'm sorry to say, but I don't have big trust in that way of doing things, because maybe we need it right now, but it just based on what I learned about and how much already the United States spent on coal, clean coal back in the early 2000s and earlier 90s, but clean coal where you use coal, but then you actually sequester the carbon and drive it down to reservoirs and try to, hopefully it stays there. And just the infrastructure involved in that, I don't believe that's the right way to go, but okay. But the biofuels, now in that scale, if we see carbon intensity defined as the grams of CO2 equivalent, because it may not be just CO2, it's all of the other carbon, the way that carbon goes to the atmosphere through methane or anything else, but we've simplified to carbon dioxide equivalent per megajoule of energy within that fuel, right? Regular diesel has got a carbon intensity of about 103 grams of CO2 equivalent per megajoule. Guess what the canola oil based biofuel is? It's about 50.
Oh, wow.
50. Remember, 103 and 50 is still positive. So we still, and all of that canola, soybean, corn, used cooking oil, how much of it? And all of these different, the corn, canola, and soybean have to be cultivated, have to be irrigated, have to be, it have to be energy put into it. Where is that energy going to come from right now? It's all fossil based, everything.
Yep.
That's what turns out it gives us that carbon intensity. When we're talking about biofuels, which are drop-in biofuels, not blended biodiesel, okay? Because the difference between biodiesel and oils like this and actual crude oil is that crude oil has it's hydrocarbon. It's hydrocarbon compounds, which are ready to distill, refine into actual fuels, which are, gasoline, kerosene, jet fuel, diesel, and all that, right? In the regular bio oils that are derived from this, it is hydrocarbon oxygen. So when you refine bio oil, you reduce the amount of oxygen and acids and all other different compounds to bring it down to closer to the compounds that are closer to the compounds in fuels, regular fuels, similar to just fuels that are derived from crude oil, right? If you don't bring it down to that level for zero oxygen, you cannot use it as a fuel by itself. You have to blend it. That's not green drop-in biofuel. In addition to that, the carbon, the whole carbon intensity, because you planted it, you irrigated it, all of that, you transported it using fossil fuel.
Yep.
There is an offset, a certain offset of carbon recirculation, and it's not really sustainable. But if you produce these biofuels from biooils that are derived from lignocellulosic biomass waste, underlying waste.
So what would that be?
Forest residues, all of the dead trees and all of the agricultural biomass waste You
Right.
know, look at any crops that you do. You know, a tree is this big, the fruit is this big.
Yeah. So is that the only waste though, Monem? Or would it be other things too? Like, can you?
Municipal solid waste, residuals.
Right.
In the United States, we generate about more than 300 million pounds per year of municipal solid waste. About 60% of it, about 30% of it or so, 20 to 30%, let's call it 20% just for, you know, is all of the packaging material that we can't not do without.
Yeah.
When we go buy food from grocery stores, it's packaged in either plastics, film plastics, or in combination between plastics and paper. We buy anything. You can't change merchandising. You can't change marketing, the marketing value that a box creates. You know, you're just not gonna.
Yeah, Apple
is not gonna sell you an iPhone without a nice, beautiful package.
Yeah.
You know, all of that material, this packaging material, whether food, whether any other merchandise, it comes in a box, comes in a plastic, all of that. That in the United States is about 60 million pounds per year.
My gosh. So you're saying this could be an alternative to the standard recycling that we do now, and it could be on a local level. Is that correct?
Well, you bring a very good point. Recycling, when you take municipal solid waste that comes from our homes, all mixed, guess how much of it that's recycled?
I don't know.
Less than 20%.
Oh my gosh.
On the average, 17%.
That's awful.
Yeah, and on the average, 17%, and that's only in developing countries like Canada and the United States. You know, and that's the biggest you can get. What is recyclable, really? The plastic bottles and containers, 7 different types of plastics, cardboard, because dirty pizza boxes are not recyclable. Okay, clean cardboard. What else? Newspaper is not recyclable. No, all of that dirty soiled paper is not recyclable. All of that film plastics, that package, you know, that for shopping bags and garbage bags and all that, and everybody's out there trying to find alternative to that, and how we can make it biodegradable plastics and everything else like that, and you know, we're forgetting the fact that hey, there is a path for recycling. Recycling is not, there is different recycling. Now we call it chemical recycling.
Okay.
What is recyclable from the traditional definition is something that we can extract, send back to remelting or regrounding or reusing that kind of material. Like cardboard can go to a paper factory. Plastics can go back and remelted and cleaned and remelted into new plastic bottles again, or containers. Metals, certainly recyclable. Everybody believes in recycling them because they're really wealthy. They're very valuable, right?
Yeah, well, that's it.
Before we used to just throw them away everywhere.
Yeah. There's a lot of value in them, monetarily as well.
Don't see anybody throwing copper away now.
No.
You know?
That's for sure.
So, if for every ton of mixed waste like that, we only get a very small percentage, you know, like less than 170 tons a ton. If it's 1,170 tons, you know, that's right. Recyclable. And then what else? Guess what? We've got 45 to 50% of that is food waste. Yeah, and that's good because developing countries in developing countries where most of it is food. They generate less, but 60 to 70% is food.
Think about all the restaurants and stuff too. Oh my gosh, it's just
all of that. Here's what we're missing out on this opportunity of municipal solid waste. Yeah. That food waste is actually a source of energy and cellulose and materials. Yeah. Rather than we sell it, send all of that material to a landfill, it rots and then sends methane to the atmosphere. Or in some cases, okay, we'll make this modern engineered landfill that we have stick pipes into it and extract renewable gas and all that. Which I think it doesn't belong to this century. Nobody should be doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You shouldn't dig holes and put pipes and try to extract renewable energy.
No, I don't think so. It sounds a little antiquated. Do you think this is a solution to all the geese in Canada too?
The geese?
I'm just joking.
I have an idea for the geese. We can actually hypnotize the geese to actually lay down their droppings where we want them to be, and then we use that as a compost.
Oh my gosh.
Man,
man.
It's possible. We can figure out how the geese work.
Let's do it. Side project.
Yeah, exactly. Because we know that they follow the magnetic field, wherever they go. So we can figure out.
That's right. So okay, so going back, so we can take all of these things that we're talking about here, that traditionally are either buried or go into the conventional recycling system.
Well, the conventional recycling system is not really
a recycling system. It's a waste system.
Think about it. We mentioned about the 20%, 40 to 5%, 20% is the packaging material, which is 60% paper, by the way. Paper is like biogenic. Right. Like it came from a tree, right? And 40% is film plastics. That by itself is a pure feedstock to making fuel, biofuel.
So this is what I'm thinking. Okay, so you have your local community. They build one of these, and then their whole ecosystem of that waste changes. It can come to this place and creates fuel. Is that correct?
Well, not only that. So you got the recyclable, which are, by the way, they have a market value of about average of $200 a ton when you extract it. Aluminum cans, about 3,000 a ton or something like that, right? Plastics, paper, all of that has value. So you extract that. That goes into part of the circular economy. Then the food waste, ideally, it should be processed in anaerobic digestion plants to extract the renewable gas from it quickly in 21 days. Not wait for stick a pipe in it and try to suck it from a landfill. No, it's in a proper facility, modern facility that could be built with the right capitalization and can have a return on investment for the entire project in less than 6 years. Okay. And so now you have renewable gas, and you have either compost out of that digestate from all of that food waste that's left over. Okay. After you remove the gas from it, you can make compost. That compost basically replaces fertilizer that is expensive now, right? And that's organic. Right? Or it could be used, also dried up and used as a source for biocarbon or biofuels, along with the 20%, which is, we said 60% of it is paper, 40% is film plastics, and that could be used to create biofuels, which are drop-in biofuels. But not turn everything into fuel. It doesn't make sense to go take all of the plastics, all of the cardboard paper, and try to make fuels out of it. Doesn't really make sense. From all of that, remember, now we're down to only about 10 to 15% that is not chemically recycled. Like chemical recycling is like what I said, turning into biofuels. That's chemical recycling, because you're completely thermochemically breaking it down, taking it to an oil refinery, making it into a drop-in biofuel or biocarbon or of that sort. What remains from a facility, what we call an IMER, we call it the Integrated Material and Energy Recovery Facility, which takes all of that waste, sorts it, takes every stream in a different direction, different place, section of this facility, and process it different. So now we're left over with the residual that is mixed of everything, guess what? You could easily, send it to a cement kiln because it has combustible organics that can add energy. It has inerts like dirt with rocks and all that can just go into the clinker itself.
Yeah.
It has film plastics, has everything.
So is that the revenue model of the Enventix, excuse me.
Enventix is focused on lignocellulose biomass waste derived biofuels and biochar right now. One of the things that we plan onto addressing, and we have the models for it, we collaborated with other companies in the recycling and the waste management business, is we have the solutions ready, but it was not our main focus right now to deal with municipal solid waste, although we spent quite a bit of time designing that kind of system, that integrated system. The revenue model, good question, and for that plan, the IMER includes revenue from recyclables. If you live in a developed country, you can't go take waste and just throw it. You have to take it to a landfill and pay tipping fees. Yes. Okay. Here in California, in the United States, the tipping fees for landfill anywhere from $30 a ton to $130 a ton. I'm not sure how much it is in Canada, but that's how it is in the United States. So that tipping fee, instead of paying it to a landfill, you pay it to this facility, right, per ton. So you've got the tipping fee, you have the recyclable materials where you extract and sell into the market at the average of $200, $300 a ton, and then you have the compost and gas, right? Especially if there is low carbon fuel standard revenue or tax incentives here in Canada or in the United States or Canada, all incentives to make this to facilitate the building of this infrastructure that can generate these fuels, right?
Yeah.
Then you have all of these sources of revenue, right? That will pay for the capital expenditure to put these facilities together. If you have facilities that, in the United States, the average city is about 500,000 people.
Right.
500,000 people will generate roughly about 500 to 700 tons per day of municipal solid waste. That kind of facility, or maybe combined with a lot of towns, a lot of cities are pretty close, somewhere in between. You've got 1,000 ton per day facility. The capital, requirement for that is anywhere from, I don't know, 250 million to $300 million. Easily could return on investment, pay back within 6 years with all of these economics, right?
And you're creating jobs, right?
Exactly, creating jobs and recovering all of these materials.
Yes. Back
into the circular economy.
Yeah. Yes.
And not contributing to greenhouse gas from landfill and all that. So what does that need? What does it need? Since we're at it, is that all we need is the proper, drivers in the cities. Okay, where first of all, the concessions that could be given to developers. That no developer wants to spend $250 million, $300 million and not have enough security to get this feedstock or this waste for 20 years, 15 years, That's the incentive, is that, and these projects are a perfect investment vehicles for endowments and for all of these different funds that look for secure projects for a long term. This is waste is there, it's available. So there has to be more progressive thinking.
I hear you,
But
man. And we're there. You know, a lot of people are getting progressive, and it's refreshing.
yeah,
And I'm with you on this. So,
yeah.
um,
And the other part of what we're doing and what we're focusing on right now is the actual agricultural waste, and
I think that's a big one. Yeah.
Because the reason we wanted to do waste, and I do love to do waste, but the bureaucracy and having to deal with the municipalities and the time it takes to get these projects going, it just doesn't make it suitable for a company of our size and start. We figured we wanted to be not tied up with the whole process of the municipality that has to go through and make a tender and then put the tender forward and lots of the public hearings and everything. But the biofuels, with the current incentives from the government, from the federal government here in the United States, and the incentives that the California government is putting forward, it makes it very, very lucrative, because our planet is the technology used for the lignocellulosic biomass from forest residue and agricultural waste is pretty similar to what we use for the for municipal solid waste, with the exception is that the municipal solid waste, our fuel facility would not be a standalone. It would be combined with a waste sorting facility, which we call the MRF, and the anaerobic digestion and all that. That's a much more involved, much more bigger, facility than the biofuels from agricultural waste, where you're taking shredded wood that's already, from dead trees and trimmed trees and all that into a fuel cycle.
So are you looking for a joint venture partner with the MRF, or do you have the resources, like not so much resources, but the guidance to put the MRF together, or is that a joint venture you're looking to establish along with investors?
Yeah, we for the municipal solid waste, we'd love to partner with waste management companies that are already, managing a landfill right now, or have a sorting facility, a MRF or something like that, and they want to expand that. We'd love to go into a joint venture with them. We're actually working with a waste management facility company in Mexico City.
Oh, good.
That's a model for that, where that company is very progressive. That they've been trying to find to increase their recycling through energy, through all that, and they've developed a very innovative process to take all the food waste and everything. They don't have anaerobic digestion or composting, but they took that and did some other process to make material that's recyclable in energy facilities, But we're working on making teaming up on adding a fuel facility to the landfill, to the existing waste management facility right now.
Yes.
The difference is, here in Canada, in the United States, we can afford the tipping fees. We're already paying for the waste management cost. In Mexico, other places, things are not as, the economics are a little bit tight. You can't afford to build these modern facilities that have, in a sorting facility in a MRF, you're talking about use of equipment that uses eddy current, where you can detect the aluminum. You're using X-ray machines to detect different types of plastics. You're using pneumatic equipment to, sort different plastics depending on weight and all that. And you're using magnetic separators, that actually detect materials that has iron in them and all that. So that these are very sophisticated, very expensive equipment, when you can't afford to pay tipping fees, when the country is already, the best they could do is just take the waste and bury it in the ground, because their economics don't. But for Canada and the United States, the standard of living permits that we develop these modern facilities, that are integrated, that will help. Imagine the amount of waste that right now goes to a landfill, the tonnage, that goes to a landfill of that material is actually recycled back into the system.
Yeah.
The value that a typical MRF, this full facility, okay, which would cost about, let's say, $500 million, that $500 million will generate not less than $6 billion in about 20 years. Will recover in value. Not less than $6 billion.
Right.
Of value into the value of energy, materials, all of that, So that recovery by itself is value creation back into the system. And that's a true enablement of a circular economy, where we have no waste. We minimize waste. We don't have, first of all, it just doesn't, this landfill, waste transportation, long distances and all of that, it's just not suitable for the, modern economy that should be built in developed countries like the United States and Canada.
Yeah. So there's some things coming too, though, right? You had mentioned biopower. Is there anything you talk to about that, or should we leave that? I mean, to me, that's really interesting to me. So
yeah, absolutely, and that's what us as Enventix, we don't believe there is one solution fit all. Okay, in some cases it would make sense to take the feedstock or the material, the waste material. Now we call it feedstock; it's actually waste, and because I don't like to use it, because others, the oil companies, I just want to mention the oil companies and what they're doing today.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I have to say this, you get the feeling that when you read a lot of the announcements about the projects that are started by the oil companies, many of them, about converting existing refineries, building new refineries to make sustainable jet fuel. They're making it from these oils that are made from crops. Yeah. That's not the most sustainable way. Mm-hmm. They call it feedstock. I'd rather not call feedstock because I want to call it waste going and becoming feedstock, just to make sure that we have a distinction.
Fair enough.
Now, depending on the nature of feedstock or the waste that's available and the community, whether it's a farming community, what's a residential community, what it is, and what makes sense. Is it power or is it fuel, liquid fuels? Mm-hmm. In some cases, is the power expensive or is it cheap?
Yeah.
What makes more sense? So when you making biofuel, drop-in biofuels that has to go into a tank, it has to be molecule for molecule. If it's a diesel, it has to be close to a diesel that is already extracted from an oil refinery, similar to that. Biodiesel. It's actually it's renewable diesel. Okay, renewable diesel goes into a tank, makes the vehicle drive the same way, but if the electricity, for instance, the local electric company is very cooperative, it's welcoming the legislation, the local government is promotes power generation from biomass waste and in a clean way. So here in California, there used to be a lot of biomass waste boilers, they call them, and you bring it shredded, burn it in a boiler where you've got all kinds of emissions from particulates and all that. Can't do that in California anymore. Mm-hmm. What you could do is you can convert that to liquid fuels.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be drop-in fuels at that point. It could be a pseudo fuel, like slightly refined oil that you can actually utilize in a typical boiler to make electricity. Mm-hmm. Now you're making electric power, biopower, as opposed to biofuel, because, you've got a central abatement system to clean the exhaust, to make sure that there is no particulates that come out of the oil, combustion of that oil, mm-hmm. which is certainly much cleaner than the combustion of solid fuels, or wood, anything like that. You also have to remove the NOx and that which get involved in part of any combustion system, which we're not gonna do without for many, many years, not before 2015, and who knows, we have to burn these liquid fuels, but we have to learn how to clean them, to make sure that they clean the environment. And that's where the solutions could be designed for the specific location.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's been a real pleasure, sir.
My pleasure.
Oh no, mine. I have learned a ton. And I wanted to touch on one more thing and then we'll wrap it up. But I was curious about hydrogen technology, and if there's any comparables between you and hydrogen, or is it just a race to, who comes out first, or, what's all that about?
Oh, I love this question. It's beautiful. Here's green hydrogen. So one of the ways that our process, we make the way we make the biofuel, the drop-in fuel, the renewable fuel, is first we take that feedstock. We have to thermally break it down because it's got lignin, cellulose, has to break it down to smaller molecules, but gaseous and oil molecules that we can actually refine in a typical refinery like oil.
Yeah.
So that process, we go to oil refining. How do we do that? As we mentioned, the bio oil that we produce has lots of oxygen and has acids. How do we process it in a process we call hydrodeoxygenation?
Okay.
So we use hydrogen to take that oxygen, and when we take the oxygen, we end up with hydrocarbons. So some of the hydrogen takes the oxygen, some of it actually becomes part of the fuel. If we have green hydrogen, our biofuels become so good in carbon intensity if it's green, So we have a path for taking green hydrogen and make it into liquid fuel.
Okay.
Now it's liquid fuel. You can drop in so we add value to hydrogen. So
very cool.
The green hydrogen cannot become, it needs an infrastructure to change and all. It can't become liquid fuel, but we can make it into a liquid fuel.
Okay.
And that's where the value is. So we think that it's not really. Okay. Now Airbus is evaluating the use of hydrogen for new type of jet engines, right?
Okay.
We don't know when that's going to happen, but the whole world is focused on sustainable jet fuel, liquid fuel, because it just basically drop-in fuel. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about changing your infrastructure. When we're talking about hydrogenation of everything and using hydrogen, it just involves a lot of infrastructure that is not there,
Mm-hmm.
and that needs, but liquid fuels, BMW is actually developed an engine that is a hybrid engine that could use hydrogen and liquid fuel both.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So
to me, it's like, I would like to save BMW's a lot of hard work and tell them, don't worry about the hydrogen.
Yeah, fair enough.
Don't worry about the hydrogen. Just we're making renewable gasoline
Yeah.
that can
Yeah.
actually take the hydrogen and easier to deal with than to, but that's okay, you know.
Yeah.
Even
Absolutely.
a hybrid gas liquid is fine, which is I don't know how that engine is going to look like, but I'd love to know more about that. Anyways.
Well, I'm learning lots, and hydrogen, it's also interesting to me. But I'm glad somebody's on it, like yourself. So, where can people find you? And then I got one more question for you.
I am on LinkedIn. We have a website called Enventixinc.com. I can be reached out easily through LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll put all your links in the description.
Sure.
Yeah.
And would love to talk to people and share ideas and explore what we could do together, you know. And after all, some of the best stuff we do is we do with others.
Absolutely.
Not alone.
It's funny, I just put a poll out yesterday to say what should be your focus in 2023, collaboration or your competition? And it's like 80 or 85% is collaboration. So a lot of us are on the same page, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. You know,
yeah,
especially when competition is fine, but even healthy competition is collaboration by itself. So
absolutely. Wow, that's beautiful, man. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
So, from all your experience and wisdom and knowledge, what is your advice to somebody like yourself, that was 20 or 30 years old, looking to make their mark in the world? What would you say to them?
You have to be persistent. Don't let the setbacks pull you back. It's the journey is never ceases to be challenging, ever. It doesn't matter. And basically you can look at inspirations of all the people that did great things and built things, and they've never been built in an easy way. They've always had struggle related to them, and the more you do, the more you get criticized, and take criticism as a sort of badge of honor. The more you criticize, the more you're trying. You're not sitting back.
Wonderful advice. All right, sir. Well, thank you very much for your time, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. You have a good evening, and talk to you soon.
You too. And my big hello to everybody in Ontario and Canada. And
yes, we miss you. All right,
Thank
Doctor.
you. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Greg Sheldon here, your host of Metal, Steel, Manufacturing, and Business Pro podcast, where you learn everything about the metals and manufacturing industry that make your modern day life possible.